Hello, welcome to 9.4, the first video of our new unit. So we are going to start off with multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So this is not much different from what we've been doing. We'll be using our factoring and everything that we learned last chapter here, so it'll come in handy. But first, we're going to start off just by simplifying this expression here. So as a reminder, when we simplify this, if we take out our GCF, we can't just take the GCF out of the first term. It has to be out of both the terms. So if we're looking at all of these, we can factor out a 3x out of all three of these. So if we pull out, let's make sure I'm in the best color, purple. Pull out a 3x from the top, that'll leave us with a 2x. And then if we pull out a 3x on the bottom, that'll leave us with a, not a 3x squared, that'll leave us with a x cubed minus 3. Okay? So then we can cancel out our 3's, and then we're just left with 2x over x cubed minus 3. We can't do anything else from there, so this is our answer. Okay, so now let's start doing new things. So it says factor and then simplify. So that's what we're going to do each time, is we're going to try to factor what we can using the different methods that we know, and then seeing what we can cancel out. So looking at the top, this is just our normal factoring. We see what numbers multiply to be 8 but add to be 6. Well, that's just a positive 4 and a positive 2. And then same thing for the bottom. We say what two numbers multiply to be 4 and add to be 4. Well, that's just x plus 2 and x plus 2. Alright, so then from here we need to say, okay, is there anything that's on the top that's the same as the bottom? Oh, we have an x plus 2 on the top and the bottom, so those cancel. So then we're left with x plus 4 and x plus 2. Okay, and we can't simplify that anymore. We cannot break it down, so that is our answer. Now moving on to number 2. Looking at the top, can we factor this? Well, this is a difference of 2 cubes. So our a value is x, and our b value is 2. So that's going to give us, using our SOAP, remember it's r minus, so we have a minus b, so that's x minus 2. And that's multiplied by a squared, so that's x squared. And same, opposite sign, 2x ab, and always positive, our b squared, which is 4. And now we look at the bottom, x squared plus 2x plus 4. Well, let's see what two numbers multiply to be 4 and add to be 2. Well, nothing, so we're left with x squared plus 2x plus 4, which, if you notice, is the same thing that we got out of our of our difference of cubes. So these whole things cancel. So then we're just left with a x minus 2. And since we did have a denominator of 1, that's the same exact thing as writing it as x minus 2. So we can go straight from this step down below. Okay, so this is our final answer. Looking at number 3, we have to look, okay, is there a GCF that I could pull out? Well, if you notice, you could pull out a negative 3 out of the top, leaving us with an x squared plus 6x plus 5. Okay, make sure you know where I got all these numbers from. And in the bottom, what two numbers, well, first we have to see if there's GCF. Oh, well, we could pull out an x. So when we do that, we're left with an x squared plus 6x plus 5. Okay, and then from here, if you're looking, oh, we can cancel right away this x squared plus 6x plus 5 with the one that we have in the denominator. So then that would just leave us with a negative 3 over x. But if you wanted to, you could also factor more, because if you notice what two numbers multiply to be positive 5 and add to be 6, well, that's an x plus 5 and an x plus 1. And so if you accidentally, or if you didn't see that right away and you're like, oh, but I saw that I could factor this, factoring this out does not hurt you, because look, you have an x plus 5 and an x plus 5 and an x plus 1 and an x plus 1. So it still cancels and you end up still with your same answer of negative 3 over x. Okay, so don't worry if you go a little bit farther than you need to, you still end up getting the same answer. And it just helps you on your factoring skills. Alright, so let's flip your page over, and then we're going to multiply and divide. Now this just takes what we've been doing a little bit further, and one thing is when we do this, we can either multiply first and then cancel, or right off the bat we can cancel and then multiply. So sometimes I'll cancel first, sometimes I'll multiply first. It really depends, but hopefully you'll get a good rhythm of when to multiply first and when to cancel first. So looking at this first problem, when we multiply fractions, we just multiply straight across. So we look at our numbers, we multiply those, so 3 times 2 is 6. And then we're going to multiply our variables together, so we have an x squared and an x to the third. And one thing to note is when you multiply your variables, you add the exponents. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So that would give you x to the fifth, and you have your y, and in your denominator you just have your 12 there. You have x by itself, and y to the fifth times y squared, that's y to the seventh. And then now we need to simplify this. So the 6 divided by 12, that leaves you a 2, or a 1/2, so 2 in the denominator. And then as we cancel out our variables here, we look at our x's. Okay, so we have an x to the fifth, and when we just have an x, that's like an x to the first. So when we simplify this, we say, okay, we have a 5 and a 1, and but we're dividing, so we subtract our exponent. So we're going to be left with an x to the fourth on the top, because that's where our 5 is. So wherever our variable is the largest, that's where our variable is going to end up. So in our y's case, we have a y to the first on the top and a y to the seventh on the bottom. We subtract them, which gives us a y to the sixth, and that's going to be in our denominator. Okay, and we can't simplify this anymore. So this is our final answer. So as we look at this next one, looking at the top, all we're doing here is we're just simplifying our polynomial. So looking at this, we'll have to factor by grouping. So we take the GCF out of the first two, which is x squared, and then we're left with an x plus 6. And then we have a negative 1 as our other GCF here, and that gives us an x plus 6. Oh, 6 didn't show up. Doot. So we have two of the same terms, so which is what we want. So then that gives us a x squared minus 1 and an x plus 6 on the top. Let's see, can we factor this bottom? What two numbers multiply to be negative 2, add to be a negative 1? Well, that's just an x minus 2 and an x plus 1. And then we're multiplying that by x squared minus 4. Well, that's a difference of squares. So that's x plus 2 and x minus 2. And that's all over. Well, look at this. Let's see, can we factor out a GCF? Yes, that's 2. So we'll have x squared plus 8 x plus 12. Alright, so from here we can simplify even further some of these things, okay? So like this x squared minus 1, that becomes x plus 1, x minus 1. We still have our x plus 6, that can't simplify even more. And our x minus 2 and our x plus 1 is still good. Can't simplify your x plus 2 and your x minus 2. And then this here, what multiplies to be 12 and adds to 8? Well, that's just x plus 6 and x plus 2. Alright, so from here we have to see, well, what can we cancel out? Okay, and we're just looking at the whole numerator and the whole denominator to see what we can cancel. So let's start off here. We have an x plus 1 in the numerator. Do we have one in the denominator? Yes, we do, so we can cancel those out. Then let's see, do we have an x minus 1 anywhere? Looking? No, we don't. Now let's look for x plus 6. Oh, we have one at the top, we have one at the bottom. And then let's see, do we have an x plus 2? Yes, we do. And do we have an x minus 2? We do. Okay, so we cancel out all of that, so then we see what we have left. We have this x minus 1, and that is all over 2. Okay, so all of that canceling, all that factoring, just leaves us with x minus 1 over 2. Now, let's look at number 3. It's a little bit different because we have division. Every time we see a division, we need to think multiply by the reciprocal. Because whenever we divide by fraction, that's essentially what we're doing, is multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to have to flip our second fraction. So this is going to be x plus 2 over 2x. And we're multiplying this by our first fraction here. Okay, so let's start factoring this out. This will have to use the Batman method because our a value is greater than 1. So once we do that, you can show the work if you want. I'm not going to. You'll get a 3x minus 2 and an x plus 1. And then in your denominator, this is just normal factoring, so that's x plus 2 and an x plus 1. And we're multiplying that by our x plus 2 over 2x. Remember, we multiplied by the reciprocal, we flipped our second fraction. So then now our whole thing is reduced as much as we can, so let's see what we can simplify. And we have an x plus 1 here, x plus 1 there, and we have an x plus 2 and an x plus 2. So then, looking at what we have left, we just have a 3x minus 2 over 2x. And this is our final answer. Then this one, same thing, multiply by the reciprocal. That means we're flipping this. So let's simplify this as we go. So we have x plus 3, that can't be simplified. And what about this 8x cubed minus 1? Oh, that should be, if you're thinking about it, a difference in cubes. So our a value is 2x, our b value is 1. So this is 2x minus 1 times 4x squared. Don't forget, you're multiplying this 2x is your a value. That whole thing is being squared, so that's 4x squared, plus 2x plus 1. You're multiplying that by 4x squared plus 2x plus 1 all over 1. Okay, because we flipped our fraction. And luckily, these cancel. We have the same exact thing on the top and the bottom. So that means we're just left with, if we multiply across, this is just 2x minus 1 times 1, so it's the same thing. So all we have is x plus 3 over 2x minus 1 as our answer. Okay, now what I want you to do for these last two is try these on your own and then compare with what I have. So pause the video and try it out. Okay, so this is what we should have, x over 3 for the first one and x minus 1 over x plus 2. So remember, you have to flip your fraction here because that was a divide. So that becomes 1 over 3x plus 6. Once we factor everything out, we cancel, of course, and then we just multiply across. What's important is this second one, okay? So when we flip, we factor out, we end up getting this mess. Now, You can do this all in one step, or you can split it up. We'll talk about more in this in class, okay?